Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well, and I hope you are keen to hear what myself and my fellow travelers have got to say. Um, I've prepared a couple of slides and so on, but I don't think that my slides can do justice to what we experienced and what we found and so on. But the sort of feedback paper that we've got on our website, and I've also put the link into the chat. I'll just put it in for you a second time for those that have just arrived. You can go through that there. I think the same goes for the white paper or the feedback paper that we've done, is that there's no way that I could get everything that needs to be said and it needs to be looked at and thought about, etc., when you're considering doing business in Kenya or Rwanda. I couldn't put that into the research paper. We could have made that thing 300 or 400 pages to get in all the interesting things, all the innovations and the developments, the ideas from brokers and agents and etc. into this. So it's sort of what we thought was interesting and what we thought could assist to get the ball going for yourself and for anybody who is interested. So I'm going to pop straight in and start the presentation. And then you guys, as we go, feel free to pop some questions into the Q&A. I'm going to try and stay within the time, and then we can have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. All right, so this was our inaugural trip. Thank you very much, Robin and the IIWC team, for being willing to partner with us on this. It was a long-standing idea. It was the first trip. And yeah, I mean, you'll hear back from my fellow travelers later on whether they think that it was a successful trip. So I'm going to start off with just mentioning that a great thank you for our sponsors. It's always difficult for sponsors to make a decision on sponsoring something that is a first and that hasn't happened before, etc. And they're not too sure what the outcome will be. But Munich Re makes sure our platinum sponsors, Lombard, Price, Forbes, and Discovery are gold sponsors. Africa Re, who provided us with a taxi in Nairobi to drive us around, and then also for Lombard, specifically for our travel insurance. Thank you, guys. Without these sponsors, it wouldn't have been possible to set the trip up. So I'm going to quickly go through the table of content for you guys. We'll just do a quick introduction to the initiative, and then we'll look at some of the interesting things from Kenya, from Rwanda, and then a bit of feedback from the delegates, where you could also ask them some questions. And then lastly, we're going to look at what happens next year on this trip. So this has been a long-standing thing. Over the years, I've been on about 30 to 35 trips to different African countries. I made a decision that unless I can make huge money, I won't go to any European countries ever again. You can see by my airline that I've got not that much time to travel anymore, and therefore I'm going to spend it on traveling into Africa. It's the most interesting continent to travel on. I have been to many others, and it's, the diversity, the experience, the hospitality, all of that is unmatched in other African countries that you can travel to. So in collaboration with the Western Cape Institute, we arranged this trip. We made the first one to Kenya and Rwanda because it's a quick round trip. You can do a sort of a legged flight. We flew with Air Rwanda, very nice airline, on time, and it was a really good experience. We had no delays or anything like that. It was really good. We had a variety of people joining us. Some of them are on um, uh, this feedback session with us. Uh, Robin, Dale, Therese, and our son, Kyle. There were quite a few people you can see from that picture, and they will give you a little bit of feedback. The idea with a trip is basically it's to learn, it's to build relationship, and it's to sort of get a hands-on feel for the countries and to try and sort of experience what is it that makes them work and how do they do things? How do they view insurance? How do they approach distribution? All of those sort of things, because we can learn a lot from them. You might have heard many times people talk about South Africa having two economies or being two countries. When you travel to other African countries, you will see that we're no different from them in that regard. You have pockets of wealthy people, and that's almost like a bit of a bubble in each of those cities. And then you have everybody else. And it's that everybody else that I would think that Kenya, Rwanda, Ghana, Uganda, most of these countries, I think they do better than us in terms of reaching those people. They might not have the same penetration rate as us because the market is not as mature, but the fact is they actually approach it better. If we can learn a bit from their approach to inclusivity, to financial inclusion and those sort of things, and how they're doing it, I think we can go a long way to serve the market in South Africa that currently is, we basically focus funeral and credit life, and that's about it. We're not getting deeper in. If we look at agri and we look at healthcare, etc., there's a lot of work that we can actually still do. So the whole idea was exploring, building relationships, and coming back with ideas, and then also in return, sharing ideas with these other countries. So I'm not going to touch on everything. I'm just going to go through a couple of things in these slides as I go to just give you a bit of a highlight of the country. So if you look at Kenya, 54 million population. Interesting thing, as with Africa, in the most is 75% of the population under 35. And so if you look at under 35s, these people would have reached their adult life in an environment where connectivity started, where mobile phones are, etc., where mobile money was available. And so when it comes to digital, being online, taking insurance, buying, purchasing, etc., digitally, that 75% of this population are falling into the category where that's is going to be the norm. And certainly from an insurance and from an innovation perspective, Kenya is taking advantage of that. So if you look at, for instance, economy, 110 billion US dollars, and the important part, 4.84% average growth over the last decade. That's their GDP growth. I think if South Africa shows a 1% average growth, it's probably going to be high. And I think that gives you a very good idea as to where they are at in terms of the economy. Lots of potential there. There's three main cities, Nairobi, Mombasa, and Kisumu. Nairobi, obviously the sort of the hub, the business hub. Mombasa is very much a tourism harbor, that sort of thing, environment. Income inequality, this is still quite a big thing. It's the same as in most African countries. 33 odd percent live below the poverty line, and insurance penetration is only 2.29%. So there's a huge amount opportunity there. When we look at the insurance digital transformation, obviously Kenya is known for its innovation, probably almost on par with Egypt, South Africa, and in some way Morocco. But the innovation's great there. Mobile insurance, there are a variety of players. I looked at those two particular because of the agri and the mobile health. Very interesting developments there. 80% of adults use mobile money. That's a huge, as I said previously, 80% of adults use mobile money. M-Pesa is massive. You can go into the smallest place and there's a card against a wall with the M-Pesa numbers on that. We can learn a lot in that regard. Everybody uses M-Pesa. InsurTech growth, obviously, that's where the growth is in insurance, tech-driven insurance solutions. And mostly the drive is to target the underserved groups. And as I said previously, that's where we can probably learn a lot. Increased access, several major players, big South African-born inclusivity solutions, very innovative company partnering with a whole lot of players across Africa. And if you go and Google inclusivity solutions, go and look at their site. Fascinating. And it's really interesting to see how they're approaching the African market. A couple of key financial indicators in the micro insurance. Target market, very much low-income workers, informal sectors, etc. You guys can go through the slides afterwards, but all of this is sort of explored in depth in the feedback paper. They still have some challenges with low financial literacy, like regulatory limitations, concerns over claims processes, and fraudulent activities. Sounds very familiar to what we have here. The regulatory environment, there is a very supportive regulatory environment. I was involved many years ago, probably about 12 years ago, with the workshop between the industry there and the regulatory authorities. And they're really very supportive. Sandbox environment to try and help people with new innovations, etc. And obviously many public-private collaborations in this digital environment. Agriculture, and I mentioned that specifically because this is a big opportunity for South Africa to look at how do they do it. We underestimate how much small agriculture is in South Africa, but there's no real focus on formalizing that, ensuring that, protecting those people, etc., because doing that will help us a lot with the rapid urbanization because of people seeking employment and leaving those rural environments. You can see here just one point that I'll focus on, agricultural's role there. It's 30% of the GDP and 40% of the people are employed in the agricultural environment. South Africa can have a massive employment in the small agriculture environment if we just focus on making it more viable and taking some of the risk out and focusing on assisting those people to actually get it right. Going over to Rwanda, and yes, Rwanda is, as you see in the pictures and as people always spoke about, the cleanest place you'll ever visit. It's amazing to drive around there. On my first trip there, myself and the person that went with me actually had a competition to see who can spot the first piece of litter in the street. And it took us a long time of driving around before we saw one piece of paper lying in the street. So it really is that way. It's absolutely amazing to drive around there. 13.3 million people, also very youthful, very large youth population. It's a small country, but fast growing. You can see here, look at this economy, 7 to 8% annual growth, even though it's off a low base. But I mean, that's very impressive. And it is set to continue on that basis. Services industry, 53%, agriculture, 24%, and then industry, 23%. So it's a good mix, but you can see again, agriculture is a big part of the industry, and then obviously the services industry, a lot of tourism and so on. And I think they will build on that. On the financial landscape, the same sort of thing. There's really good growth potential, increased digital adoption. There's a lot of smaller innovations coming out of that. They focus a lot on community savings groups, especially in the rural areas where those groups are thriving. But the penetration is still quite low there in the rural areas, limited formal banking in the rural regions, and therefore microfinance is very important, and that's where some of the opportunities lie as well. Same sort of challenges, income disparities affect financial security for growth, low financial literacy. A lot of opportunity both in the short term and in the life side, agri, health, especially property as well. Very low penetration in property insurance, especially individuals, personal property, etc. And so there's a lot to be focused on there, and we'll probably see a lot of innovation coming out of that. Challenges, again, low insurance penetration, 0.9%, very low. And that's due to cost, lack of awareness, etc. And I've put links to quite a few resources in the feedback paper that you can go and look at. There's a really good World Bank report on Rwanda insurance that has got lots of really good detail for you to look at. Innovations, a lot going on in the agri space. Those two companies specifically stood out for me. There are others as well. Mobile, life and health side. I was very, in both Kenya and in Rwanda, interested in their health insurance approach and the mobile of that, which South Africa can learn a lot from. Microinsurance, the interesting thing is the NGOs and government that are partnering to help with that. And then again, the regulator is very keen on getting growth and stability from insurance. And so there's a lot of input and a lot of working together, which is great. A couple of major players, product focus, I think we've got that. There's distribution channels, agents, brokers, digital platforms. Agents, both Kenya and Rwanda, not quite the same as in South Africa. Agents can also work individually and on their own, whereas in South Africa, usually when we talk about an agent, it's somebody employed and with a company, maybe on an incentive, but probably earning a salary. Over there, both Kenya and Rwanda agents are professionals also, and they can operate on their own. Target segments, again, low income and rural communities, which is, again, where we can learn from. I highlighted agri again because I still think this is a big place for us to go and learn. Microinsurance growth, low-cost options, health and agriculture, government partnerships, big support for crop and climate-related insurance, digital platforms that are trying to improve access, and then future trends, continued expansion through tech and government. So that's sort of a little bit of feedback from my side and just a bit of an overview, but I would love for you guys to go and download that feedback report and go and have a look at that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly page through these, and then I'm going to go back to the delegates to talk to them, but I'm just going to highlight one or two things. So from Brent's side, one of the things I've sort of pulled out something that stood out for me from each guy's feedback that each person did. From Brent's side, the goal is to encourage collaboration, strengthen existing connections while creating new ones. So that's a good view and a good sort of background to go into the area with and to go on this trip. Cherise, it was an enriching experience, not only on a personal level, but also from an insurance perspective. And if I look at Dale, I was excited about being exposed to different ways of doing business across Africa. And that's also Dale. And Hassan, South African companies and professionals would benefit from collaborating across borders. I think one of the things that stood out for me from Hassan, and maybe Hassan, you can share a little bit your thought on that a bit later, was just your sort of view on time and on how we sort of approach that and how our hosts approach that. I've been, as I said, traveling Africa for many years, and it is, you have to go with the right mindset. It's every country is different. There was a book that was written, I've mentioned it before, and the title of the book was Africa, You're Not a Country. Every country is different. Every country has different ways of doing things. And the continent is a continent of countries. It's not one. Africa is not one country. So if I go a little bit Khalil, there were so many insights on how to conduct business on the continent. And I think that's a very relevant piece of feedback because every country is so different. Every country you can learn something new. From Karl Klopper, the culture around insurance is still developing, but the markets are thriving. And that's very true. There's so much enthusiasm, optimism. It's in that sense, in South Africa, we can sometimes be sort of a bit negative about our economic environment and our insurance environment, etc. But if you go there, and in this case, Kenya and Rwanda, the industry is thriving, even though it is challenging environments for them to operate in. And Robin, I was almost in tears one day because we were met with such warmth and hospitality. I suppose that helped at the Raya. And I think lastly was mine. For me, it was the initiatives about learning from other countries and sharing what we've learned in return. I think that was the most important. So I think I'm going to halt here and go back to this presentation a bit later. And I'm first going to give the delegates a bit of an opportunity to also share some of their thoughts. So Robin, Mrs. President, we're going to start with you.
Thanks, Tony. Oh gosh, I'm looking at some of those pictures now and it's bringing back such good memories. But I think when Tony approached our IIWC team and said, listen, let's go and join forces and explore Africa, it just made sense. It's close to home. It's our continent and it's a place that, was developing or is developing very quickly and thriving as well. And I actually made just a few keyword notes here. And the first word that I wrote down was hospitality and just the way we were received. I think, landing in Nairobi and leaving the airport, we were fortunate that we had transport sponsored by Africa Re. And I think I would have been very nervous if it wasn't for one of the locals that were driving us around. If it was any one of us driving a bus, I don't know. That travel insurance policy would have been ready on the medical expenses side because they've just got this organized chaos on the roads there. But everybody knows exactly where to go and where to drive. And I'm sitting shoulders up because I'm scared somebody's going to drive into us, or there's trucks, there's taxis, there's motorbikes, there's bodas, there's everything. And it's just this chaos, but synergy, and it just flows and everybody knows where to go. I think in the entire time that we were there, I probably saw we stopped at all of 3 traffic lights. And so I don't think we saw any motor vehicle accidents or anything while being on the road there. So the way we were received was the one standout thing for me. The hospitality from the people that we met with was really great. And just the level of professionalism to walk into every meeting, and it's people who are passionate about the same industry and about what we are doing. That was just so great for me. Everybody's dressed, like they are ready to do business. They sit around a boardroom table and they are there to have a discussion. And you feel it, and they're excited about being in our industry, and they're proud to be in our industry. And that was like one of the things for me that I thought, we work in this industry every day. We work with insurers, with brokers, whatever it may be. But just that, going back to remembering what we are doing and why we are doing what we are doing. and channeling into that passion for what we are doing is what stood out. So they are very professional. The way they conducted themselves in the meeting was very professional. And I know our son is going to talk about the time, but African time is the real thing, guys. They are looking at the clock, not worried about what needs to happen at what time. It's you are in that meeting until they are done, until they have said what they needed to say. But I think our meetings were arranged really well. We met with really key people, everybody from the brokers to the insurers. We met with the association, the Insurance Institute of Kenya. That was really stand out for me because it's really close to what we are doing as an IIWC and even as the IISA. The Insurance College was a massive standout for me as well. Dr. Ben Kadra and his team and what they are doing at the college from a training perspective is one of the things that I think both the Kenyan and Rwandan market are getting right. They are really good at training up their people, but beyond that, they are good at placing their learners into the workforce. And so we're sitting in our industry that is as massive as it is over here, with a whole lot of experience, people who have been in the industry for a long time, and this massive gap between them and people who are entering, and then also struggling to pull people into our industry. And they have this amazing college that's there, that's providing all of these platforms to the point that the learners are being placed into roles, or are being headhunted by insurance companies or by brokers or whatever it may be before they are even completing their qualifications. And so how they navigate all of that and get all of that right is definitely something that I think we can learn from over here. Man, there was so many other things that stood out. The relationship between all of the different associations and the regulator for me was just it's insane to understand, because we sit on this side in an environment where it's us and the regulator, and there's almost like this gap between like us and them. And with everybody that we met with everything that they needed to roll out from a regulatory perspective, they just went to the regulator and had a conversation. Or would they bring up the collaboration with the regulator all the time? And so that for me was one of the major standout points as well. Things that they are getting right that we still need to work on, um, like from a motor perspective, the compulsory motor third party cover that they have attached to their license renewals. The fact that there are no vehicles older than 20 years on the roads there, which is why there's less incidents or accidents or whatever it may be, because those vehicles are in a good condition. Those were things that I looked at and I'm like, okay, so that's what, we're not doing here. But on the flip of that, one of the major things that and questions that came up in every single meeting was around our market penetration and how we are able to achieve what we are achieving. Tony mentioned the inability at the moment for them to tap into the property market and the property insurance. And those are things that, they still need to work on. But if I look at how far they've come in such a short space of time, and specifically like Rwanda, if you think of at a time when our country was coming out of or going into or gaining freedom, they were at like at the start of the genocide. And so to see over a 30-year period how they evolve and develop their market from a genocide to where they are now, I don't doubt that it won't be long before they tap into those markets that they are challenged with at the moment. So there's a lot, from a cultural perspective also that stood out for me. The way people are, the hospitality for me was really just a major standout. The food was amazing. The tea was amazing. The coffee was and everything on that side was just very good. I think it's the best cup of tea I've ever had in my life. I had to Kenya. Um, but it was those little things that just added to the trip and to the success of this trip. I can go on because there was so many things that stood out for me. But yeah, I think there's a lot of learnings and things that we could take away. And it wasn't at all a case of us going in being mightier than thou because we've got a larger sort of percentage of the market than what they do. They just bring you back down and say, we are here for business. We are professionals and just watch this space.
Thank you so much. Yeah, now I think, Robin, you hit the nail on the head in terms of, I suppose, the most outstanding thing or experience, and I've had that for many years of my travels, is the hospitality and the, the friendliness with which we are received. And yeah, we can learn a lot in terms of how we host people locally. It's just on a different level. And in my feedback, I will personally give a little bit more on that as well. But thank you so much for your sharing. Again, just to mention to everyone in the Q&A, you can pop questions in if you have any specific questions. Let's go, Dale. Give us a little bit of feedback there.
So one thing I must say, the experience that I had, it was quite eye-opening, especially with the traveling, as Robin said, and the commuting, between the spaces. One thing that struck me is that even though, there's this organized chaos, there wasn't any road rage. Everyone was so accepting, everyone was so calm and patient and didn't get caught up in the craziness. So I would almost say that there was this impatience with patience. And, it was crazy for me to see that, but it wasn't just learning, about how they practice insurance, but it was also experiencing people's, way of tolerance, which for me was a great thing to see. As well as, when it came to tolerance of even, there was no such thing as late coming. Everyone took their time. Everyone was so accepting, if it happens and we move forward. We were so
Yeah.
well received by everyone in the meetings, etc. And they were so accommodating and so prepared for us. I mean, if you think about it, most of the time we took something away from the meeting, whether it was a t-shirt that was prepared for us with their branding, which from a marketing perspective is absolutely awesome, because how many times are we so prepared for a meeting which we would consider small, but yet have something branded to take away from it, so that we always remember the time that we had with them and the engagements that we had with them. So from a marketing perspective, that for me was also awesome and an awesome takeaway from that. I definitely think that we can learn from them in terms of, and something that needs to be implemented as soon as possible within South Africa, is the compulsory third party cover. Because thinking about it now, if someone knocks into you and doesn't have insurance, that is a nightmare. So that for me was awesome. And the fact that even your insurance status is being able to be scanned into the licenses. So immediately they can pick up that if you have insurance or not. It's not a case of looking for your proof of insurance, because most people would think that proof of insurance is carrying around your policy schedule or some sort of confirmation of cover. So that for me was a great takeaway, and it was awesome to learn about everything. And I was so amazed at how even after the genocide, they were able to pick themselves up so quickly, that they were the cleanest. It was the cleanest environment to be around. And for me, that was an eye opener. And the fact that on a monthly basis, the community helps in cleaning. And I looked at the environment and I'm like, what are they there to clean then? Because it was the last week of the month that they would normally get together and clean their city, because they had so much pride in that. And I was thinking, but there is nothing to clean, because I was missing that loose little knickknacks packet that's blowing around in the wind. There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. Not even, I've never even seen that there isn't even chewing gum, old chewing gum that's stuck on the tar road. It was so clean. So for me, that was an awesome experience.
Dale, thank you so much
Yeah.
for that feedback. Cerise, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. I think most of what I experienced and the good experiences was shared already by Robin and Dale. So I will basically just say I echo everything they're saying. But really, the hospitality really stood out. Um, they were always prepared, whether it was a cup of tea or biscuit, and also insisting on us eating all the time. So yeah, their professionalism, that also stood out, just the manner in which they're conducting themselves, and also just the pride that they have in the industry that they're serving, that stood out. The general, well, like Robert also said earlier, if we had to drive ourselves, we would probably have made multiple accidents because the driving, yeah, that's something else. I think we had a couple of heart palpitations and things as we were driving and experiencing the driving of the people around us. The evenings in Kenya, it was buzzing. Markets were going on, and the amount of people that were around at that time of the night. Yeah, so vibrant, really good experiences. Rwanda was good. Same level of professionalism as what we experienced in Kenya, and same type of hospitality. And the wrongs I must just mention, our breakfast in Rwanda. It was not your typical breakfast that we used to. But yeah, it was really good, really interesting, really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cerise. Hassan, feedback from your side.
Hi, everyone. And thank you once again for everyone joining here. Thanks, Tony, for giving me the opportunity. So I went on this trip very much with an open mind, but still, I have to always point out as a South African with a South African minded perception. But all of that was completely dashed when I started engaging with the people. And like Robin and everyone has said, just the receptiveness and the genuine hospitality was something I never ever experienced. And the level of warmth, it was very much that genuine warmth. And what was quite interesting, it was genuine warmth for a stranger because they don't know us from Adam, so to speak. But they made us feel comfortable. And this goes across the board from Kenya and Rwanda. The level of professionalism, just in terms of the conduct, was amazing. And when I was speaking from both sides, Kenya and Rwanda, the level of professionalism was amazing. And also, as Robin has noted, that everyone is dressed, ready to do business. And it's something that I'm missing actually in our industry to a large degree, that not everyone has that look of, I'm in this industry, I dress the part, you can see that I'm in this industry and I'm literally carrying the flag of this industry. If we could bring that back, that would be something quite interesting or something quite valuable. Just talking to what Dale has noted, I think Dale, one other thing is, I don't think we ever heard anyone hoot at anyone there as well, which was quite interesting in
Yeah,
Kenya.
absolutely.
Yeah, so it was like literally, let's just go and let's just do what we must do and we'll get there. So this aspect of time that we spoke to, it literally, you go from a clock watching person in terms of meetings and the like in South Africa to, and more specifically in Kenya, to a place where, yes, time is important, but it's not the key driving factor. And we especially experienced at the College of Insurance, where we were hosted, literally, it felt like the whole day. Everyone had enough time for us. And these are people that are so busy, but they had time for us. They made time for us. They made us feel special. And we gained a lot of insights and a lot of value from those conversations, because the conversations went from professional to personal to social. And that's how we got to know the people who we were dealing with, which, once again, to the points that many of the delegates raised, was it wasn't just there to network, it's there to collaborate, there to actually form friendships. And this is what we felt that we were actually doing as well. So, touching on the Rwanda, the cleanliness of it, it was remarkable. But also in both countries, the safety factor was something truly special. One of my colleagues and I, Khalil specifically, we took a walk one evening in Kenya from where we were staying. So just think of a very dangerous area in, let's speak specifically Cape Town. You wouldn't find yourself walking down any dark alley, so to speak, in the evening. We decided we're going to take a walk and we're going to go and draw money. So we took a walk, and you approaching it as a South African, always looking over your shoulder. But like within a few minutes, that completely just fell away. No one was worried with us. They were more concerned about, are we fine in terms of knowing where we want to go, helping us along. We met a guy called Stevie Wonder, interestingly enough, at the bank. He helped us. He was a very friendly guy. But it was just so amazing. I was really, once again, thriving, as Robin has noted and Cerise has noted. It's like, let's do business. Let's grow this economy. It's the notion that you get, and by all means necessary, in an ethical way. You always got this feeling that people are doing this not to shortchange anyone, but to help the next one along. And that, in general, in essence, was the takeaway, that they do business ethically. And therefore, this aspect of coming, just want to caption this with the regulation aspect. There is this notion in South Africa, it feels like an us and them. Doesn't matter whether you're in insurance or investments, wherever, it's the us and them feeling, where the regulator will foist down things upon us. A big thing that we found in Kenya and Rwanda is that the regulator is very accommodating in terms of wanting the industry to grow, therefore fostering innovation. So innovation isn't being stifled, where it feels more innovation is being stifled to a certain degree in South Africa. It's thriving there. And to that point, there's a lot of self-regulation that comes into play there. But it also comes down to the culture of the people. And it's within them to want to do good. In general, I'm just generalizing there, but to want to do good in Rwanda and Kenya. And I foresee, if, we sometimes rest on our laurels that we have this high penetration rate of insurance, but I foresee that Kenya and Rwanda are going to potentially surpass us if we don't wake up and start changing certain things, like the one thing that Dale mentioned about making compulsory third-party insurance. Learning from our counterparts, and I can speak specifically now to Kenya and Rwanda, learning from what they are doing and what's working within their regions, and seeing how that could translate to our region, but not the cookie cutter way, to actually engage and see what are they doing that makes it work for them, and vice versa, them engaging with us more specifically, and sort of being advisors across the board to help grow not just our regions, but Africa as a whole, because the penetration rate on the whole in Africa, I just heard recently, is about 3.4%. We need to get that up. And insurance, as I found, it touches every single part of our lives, and touches a large part of our continent's economy. So it's very important for us to really just foster these collaborations and make it more than just networking, but actually something that we can mutually grow together for the greater good.
Son, thank you so much for that. Kyle, some feedback from your side.
How's it, guys? Jeez, I mean, I don't think there's much I can add on to what everyone said, other than it was just, what an amazing trip. I mean, I've been blessed enough to travel around the world, and it was my first trip into Africa, and my view on Africa in its entirety, from a professional and just a personal point of view, has changed completely. It actually made me, you have kind of restore faith in humanity. It sounds so silly, because the trip itself, the people were just so good to us, so hospitable, so appreciative of the fact that we had taken the time out to come to their country, and to understand how insurance works in their country. And as soon as you mention you're from South Africa, it's like, no, wait, sit down, let's have a chat. How do you have such a high penetration rate with insurance? They were almost like hoping that we had some form of trick for them that would allow them to get a higher penetration rate. But also they were just so open to sharing the struggles, or, the challenges that they face in the market, and some of the solutions that they feel kind of help. So, I mean, from a professional point of view, it was really great to understand how their markets work. And yeah, they are quite, I wouldn't say they're very mature markets, especially in Rwanda, but they are definitely, they've got a level of professionalism that you admire, with regards to how little penetration rate they have, and how much it is a bit of a slog for them to kind of get more penetration. They all have this level of professionalism that you seem kind of is respectful to one another. They're very proud of what they do. They're very happy to share stories of how they think they could improve the environment, the professional environment, insurance environment, and landscape. So, from that point of view, it was a real eye opener. I think sometimes everyone always talks about, how we fell into insurance, or insurance is something that we kind of never chose, it chose us. But, there's this real sense of pride that they have in what they do and in the insurance sector in both Kenya and Rwanda. And then, I mean, from a personal point of view, like I touched on, the people were just incredible. And the hospitality that we received, it was almost like we had been asked to come on this trip by all these people that were hosting us. They were just so happy to have us, and they couldn't extend an invite. They could have just kept going. I mean, there are thoughts of the insurance college in Kenya where Dr. Ben, we had an appointment. I think the appointment was 2:00 in the afternoon, and I think we left there. I think it was like 12:00 at night, like literally dinner and drinks and like just everyone making sure. At one stage, they even said, "No, why didn't you just stay the night? There's a hotel here, just stay the night." So from that point of view, it was incredible. I would literally encourage anyone who is of the means to really try and get involved with it in the next year. And it's just an honor to be able to have your name on a research paper as well. It's something that I never thought I would ever be able to say as well. So I'm very grateful for it. And I'm always obviously open to, if anyone wants any further kind of insights, or maybe my insights outside of the call, because I know we are short on time, I'm happy to have a chat as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kyle. That's just interesting. Yeah, I mean, it sort of brings me to a little bit of my feedback. I think, again, I can reiterate what everybody else said, and not to labor the point, but over the years that I've been traveling to other African countries, that's exactly what I've experienced. I've had amazing experiences. When you talk about hospitality, it's when we were on a trip once to Ghana, and to make a long story short, we ended up in an area where, it was quite sort of underdeveloped area. We were lost in terms of trying to find our Airbnb. We were sitting with all our stuff next to the road at a filling station, and there was soccer on, and there was a whole lot of people in the workshop shouting and screaming for the soccer and whatever, and one guy attending to the pumps. And while we were sitting, it was getting dark. This guy came walking up to us with 2 garden chairs. And he said, he sees that we've been standing here for a while. Don't we want to sit down? And it was like in the middle of nowhere, And 10 minutes later, the guy who's hosting us at the Airbnb came jogging up the street. He said, no, he came looking for us. And that's the sort of thing, we were getting dark and whatever. No need to worry. Somebody will come, You'll find the place, etc. And that's sort of all over. But I think the main point that I want to make is each country in Africa struggles with the same thing that we do here. They don't really know the countries around them. We have the circuit in the insurance industry of people that know these different countries, that understand what we're talking about now. People that attend the main conferences, the OSI conference, the AIO conference, the WICA conference, etc. But the rest of us and the rest of our industries in all of these different countries, and I'm not just talking about the industry, but people in general, don't really know their neighbors. They don't really know the other African countries. They don't really understand the cultures of the different countries. And it's so important for us as a continent to realize that we have such rich history and cultures that we can share and that we could experience together. That it's for me, like if you have a bucket list to travel and it's 50 destinations, they should all be Africa, because this is where we are from and this is our continent. And we should be building this continent and learning from each other, because it is just and I think everybody will probably agree with me. It didn't take long to feel at home in Kenya and to feel at home in Ghana. And that's because we are from Africa. And yes, there are differences, but on the whole, we are from Africa. And we need to build our economies and our industries together. So on that note, I want to quickly share in closing, for those who don't know, that is a boarder. That's a guy that will take you around on a scooter anywhere you'd like to go. They're fascinating things about the scooter insurance and how they improved the experience and ensured the safety of people, both in Kenya and in Rwanda, with easy access insurance for the scooter owner, driver, and the passenger. That was quite an interesting thing. So there's a whole lot of photographs. We will share the slides so you guys can have a look at some of the photographs just to see how the experience went. And now the interesting part of this whole thing is next year we're going to Ghana. And we've decided that next year we're only going to do one country because we really want to get to know the country in depth. We really want to meet a lot of people. We want to get to know the industry and we want to explore a little bit. There's so much to see. Part of this trip is going to be, we're going to go up the Gold Coast, up the sort of north from Accra, the capital. We're going to visit the rainforest. We're going to spend some time on a beach resort there. Not rare quality, guys, but it will be sort of 3-star, most probably. On the beach, very nice. We've been there before. And then we're also going to visit the slave castle. There's a big slave history for the west coast of Africa in Ghana. Fascinating to learn about that history. But we're also going to meet with a lot of people in Ghana again. We're going to meet with associations, with companies, brokers, agents, and so on, to really get to know the country and its industry. And we're going to open up there soon for you to register and to put in your interest in it. The trip is limited in terms of people. We sort of had a limit of about 12 people, but I think we're probably going to go for, because we've had quite a bit of interest already, we're probably going to go for about 18 maximum, not to overstretch, because the value of this is to have the small team that we can really fit in with other people and the office spaces, etc. So this is certainly coming up for everybody. So yeah, please feel free to let us know, and we will. Everybody that's on here, you'll get a notice, and yeah, you already had some sort of opportunity. I saw there were about 20 odd people that showed their interest. So Robin, we're on the go with that. Same with sponsors. We can't make this work without sponsors. So the idea is that we try to cover quite a bit of the cost, but the traveler still has contribution to make, especially if we want to stay a little bit up from the raya. We have to increase the cost a little bit. So yeah, guys, that was, thank you so much for giving your feedback as well. And once again, thanks to all our sponsors. And I want to end off with just saying thank you so much to everyone that hosted us in these two countries. There are some people on here from those two countries. Dr. Ben, it was an outstanding experience at the College of Insurance in Nairobi. We really enjoyed that. We loved what you've done there. We've loved the place. As many of the feedback said, what the college is doing is incredible. What the college has created and built there is incredible. And all the other associations, AKI, the broker association, agencies, everybody in Rwanda, Azar, and everybody that hosted us there, we really appreciated that. And we're hoping to give back on visits from Kenya, Rwanda, etc. And then also, just out of interest, as a last word, we are hoping to take some people that we met up with in Kenya and Ghana to join us on the trip in Ghana, because the whole idea is not just to for us as South Africans to get to learn about other African countries, but for other African countries to get to learn about other African countries. So the whole idea is to share stories and innovations and ideas from country to country and build up that network and relationship between people in those different countries. So we look forward to March next year for this trip. And hopefully some of the guys on here, we will see you over there. So thanks to everyone who joined us. We're really thankful for you sharing time with us. And please go and download the feedback report on our website. The link is there. And we will see you guys soon on the trip. Thank you very much.